All right, so today I wanted to continue my series of principles to live by. Next one that we're on to is never live above your means. This is one that people hear quite a bit, but a lot of people don't follow this. I don't know what the exact number is off the top of my head, but I believe it's like 30 or 40% of people making six figures live paycheck to paycheck, and something like a quarter of people making like $250,000. Like, we live in a society nowadays where this is just accepted, right? And I also think that a lot of the traditional things that we blame this on are not the actual cause, right? In my mind, the actual cause is simply just incentive, right? I mean, if there wasn't such a bad incentive to live this way, well, people wouldn't do it, right? Human behavior is largely driven by incentive. It's not the traditional garbage that people like to blame it on, right? Successful people almost always follow this rule. I mean, you do hear some examples of people that they're very well off, but yet they're still in a lot of debt, right? Most people that are successful follow this, right? And people who aren't successful almost always don't follow this, right? I mean, if you want more nice things, well, you got to work harder. You got to make more money, right? You got to earn it, right? And nowadays, we have a mentality where people just think they're owed everything, right? They're owed a nice, cushy middle class lifestyle, regardless of how, or even upper middle class lifestyle, a lot of people, regardless of how much they produce, right? People work in a minimum wage job, expect to have a nice cushy lifestyle like that. That's not how reality works, right? That's not how reality works. I hate to break it to people, but and again, if you disagree, you disagree. This isn't for you if you disagree with that, because I mean the numbers are pretty clear, right? They're pretty clear in that if we have more people in society that are producing less than they're consuming, well, we're going to run into issues, right? So if we're looking at society as a whole, the way that we increase people's standard of living is very simple, right? We produce more than we consume, right? Well, what does that mean? It means we got to work hard, right? We got to work hard. And not only that, we got to allow the smartest people in society to run their course, for lack of a better way of putting it, right? And that's another thing that we just don't do nowadays, right? We got to cater to the lowest common denominator, right? That's another really big problem. But again, getting back to the main point here, never live above your means. This is not complicated, right? I mean, all it takes is basic math, right? I mean, if you're making $5,000 a month, you just break it down very simply, right? Very, very simply, right? You know, your mortgage is 2,000, right? Let's say all your other expenses are another 2,000. Okay, you got $1,000 to work with, right? In my opinion, you spend maybe half that and you save the rest, right? Very simple, right? Very simple. You track it. One thing that you look at amongst the most successful people in anything, they're very, very, very uh, anal about doing things, right? I mean, like the people that are the best, that look the best physically, right? They're tracking their meals, they're tracking their workouts, like et cetera, right? The people that are the big real estate gurus, right? They're tracking all their properties, how much it's making, all that kind of intricate details that go along with that, right? So again, it's not a complicated thing at the end of the day. The problem is people are so ingrained in this way of going about things that they just don't want to change, right? And they don't change because they're not forced to change, right? And the other reason that I bring this up is that a lot of people like to defend, for lack of a better way of putting it, people that make these bad decisions, and it's like, why would you care about people more than they care about themselves, right? That's a very important thing I think that people need to understand, is that you should never care about people more than they care about themselves. No, I'm not saying you shouldn't try to help, right? I'm not saying that, but a lot of people, they make it their mission that, oh my God, if there's any wealth disparity in the world, it's the worst thing in the world. Like, no, like, it's not the case, right? It's not the case, right? And the problem also is that you're never going to achieve it, right? It's never going to be enough. So again, it's very simple, right? When it comes to this stuff, you set yourself a budget and you stick to it, right? And a lot of people say, well, how do you get started? It's so hard to get started. It's like the way I would get started is you simply track everything you spend money on. And you don't even need to. A lot of people say, oh, you need to get into some super strict budget right off the bat. I would recommend not even doing that personally. I would simply recommend track everything you spend your money on. Don't change your behavior, right? Don't change your behavior. Just track everything you spend money on for 2 or 3 months, maybe longer, maybe shorter, depending on the person. But a few months probably is a good amount. And break it down to things that you need, you don't need, but you probably like food, right? I mean, you need food, but do you need, fancy, do you need steak dinners all the time, like stuff like that? You need clothes, but do you need designer clothes, right? Those are some example. You need a car, but do you need a fancy car, right? So I would break it down to things that you absolutely positively need, right? Housing, although again, do you need, like, is the house you need more than you actually need, right? Again, you need to be realistic with these things, right? The first thing I would do is categorize the essentials, the things you absolutely positively cannot live without. Then the things that are essential, but you wouldn't end up homeless or dead if you didn't have them, right? And then it would be the things that you really don't need but you want, right? The going out, concerts, eating out, any sort I mean, leisure activity that is outside the norm, right? I mean, people should know what I mean. If you don't know what I mean, then you're probably not going to get it anyway. That's what I would do, right? I would simply categorize it. And the one thing I would also do is that you should be taking a certain percentage of your income and investing slash saving, right? Again, the traditional rule of thumb is 10%, on the high end 20%. In my opinion, 10%, if you're not doing anything, start with 5%. I mean, hell, start with $20 or $50 a month, right? The easiest way to develop a habit is to start as simple as humanly possible, right? So again, if you want to never live above your means, like I say, the easiest way of doing it is simply force yourself to track every dollar you spend. Don't like I said, don't even change it. Force yourself to track every dollar you spend. And honestly, just by doing that, people are going to figure out pretty quickly that a lot of the stuff they're spending money on they don't need, or maybe they don't need it as often as they're doing it, right? I mean, do you really need a coffee every day? I mean, this is one of the best examples, right? There's people that spend their $5 or whatever it is on a Starbucks every day. It's like intelligent people, like unintelligent people think of that as, oh, it's only $5 a day, right? Though it doesn't matter. But how much is $5 a day over 30 years when you invest that? Like, I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but it's going to be well into the hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? And this is the question too that people need to ask themselves. It's like, if you're going to spend $1,000 on something, would you rather have the thing right now, or would you rather have $2,000 10 years from now, or $3,000 20 years from now, or $5,000 or $6,000 30 years from now, or hell, $10,000 or $20,000 40 years from now, right? That's another way of thinking about it, is that, because again, if you save the money, you're going to have more in the future, right? That's a fundamental principle, right? So that's another way of thinking about things is, would you rather have the thing now, or would you rather have double the things 5 to 10 years from now, right? That's another very good way of looking at it. So again, this one's pretty simple. The hard part is getting started, right? Just simply track everything you do and then break it down from there, right? You should always have a certain percentage of your income that you're saving. Like I say, 10 to 20% 10% probably is good for most people. If you want to do more, great. If not, I mean, if you're saving for a house or some big purchase, then you're going to have to do more. You're probably going to have to do 15 or 20% unless you want to save for a long amount of time. But again, the secret to all of this stuff is starting simple, right? If you have your credit cards maxed out and you're in a super high amount of debt and you're spending all this money on crap you don't need, you're not going to go from that to saving 20% of your money and on a nice budget within a matter of a month or two. This stuff takes time. It'll probably take 6 months to a year for the average person to actually develop the discipline to do something like this, if you can even do it in the first place. So anyway, that's what I wanted to talk about today. If you liked the video, hit that like and subscribe, and stay tuned for more.